Last Friday. Okay, so let's start. Reset. Today's Wednesday morning. It's Wednesday morning. It's not even 9:30 yet. Last Friday, I did my first week in review in years. And I had like 2 little pieces of paper, of them 1.5 were filled with like stories that I wanted to talk about. Last night, Tuesday night, I finished my second page full for this week, and we still have the Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday to go. This is going to be crazy. Everything happens, it's a wild ass week. So today I want to talk about 2 different things. And the first thing is going to, be infuriating in a way. And then the other thing is going to hopefully get you thinking just a moment and feeling a little better. Even though, I don't know, just bear with me. We're going to get there. Let's go. This is Trent Takes On. I'm the Trent from the title of the show. I guess I should say it right. This is Trent Takes On 2.0. I did a show called Trent Takes On. That was a little different. And then when I came back after a almost 2-year hiatus, I titled the show the same thing, but to put a 2.0 behind it like a maniac. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I talk about things that are important. I talk about things that are important to our world, important to our society, important to you as a parent, important to you as a citizen, important to you as a friend, important to you as a son or daughter, important to you as a human, I hope. Even though we have self-determination and we get to live our lives the way we want to live, generally speaking, live our lives the way we want to live our lives within reason. There are things that happen above our pay grade, if you will, that can change the way we live. And that's one of the reasons that today's politics are so important. I cared about politics before the era of Trump, the 10 years now we've had of Donald Trump in our lives. Actually, it's 11. I cared. I didn't care as much because I didn't see the danger as much. Even during the Bush administration, I thought W did a bunch of dumb shit. I wasn't alone. And for the record, he did do a bunch of dumb shit. We weren't wrong. But I never ever felt like W was like malevolent. Like I never thought he was evil. I just thought he was surrounded by some people who had some evil in them. Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, some people who I thought advised him in ways that were a little overly aggressive. He said over, multiple forever wars. But this is different. This is malevolence in charge of the United States of America. And the first term, I felt like we survived almost by accident. Like if it weren't for the COVID derailing the entire world, that we might have been actually in a worse position. That's crazy shit to say right there. So many people were negatively affected by COVID, even if it wasn't losing a loved one, even if it was just, being ill, even if it was just the mental fallout, the anguish, the PTSD, the solitary, nature of living in your home, not being able to go anywhere. And it drove people a little bit out of their minds at times. I mean, but if you think about it, that was dangerous. That was a bad time. And that was beyond anybody's control. This time, right now, 2026, 2025, 2026, this has been just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, because it threatens It threatens the future in a way that a constantly degrading coronavirus doesn't. So the only thing I want to talk about from politics this week is the United States Postal Service and its new rule. I guess you have to go back to March when it was actually signed. Donald Trump decided he wanted to sign an order because he couldn't get his SAVE Act passed. And his SAVE Act, this quote unquote election integrity bill, which isn't about election integrity at all. It's about limiting the number of people who can vote, specifically people of color, poor people. That's what it's about. Requiring citizenship tests to register and to vote every time out. And having, according to the SAVE Act, everybody has to carry with them proof of citizenship. So a passport, which nowhere near all Americans have, or a certified birth certificate. And if you've changed your name, you would also have to have the paperwork that changed your name, like a certified marriage license or a court order. So you'd have to carry that with you every time you voted. I mean, passports are expensive. They're like, I want to say $75 now. And you have to renew them every 10 years. So you have to get a new one every 10 years. I have had to get a certified copy of my original birth certificate. And let me tell you, it required jumping through hoops that were maddening. But I did it. It took 2 years. I think it was about 2 years. It took the assistance of my mother, who will come up later in the show. And it did cost it was like $120 in the end. It was so nuts. And they want everybody to do that. Everybody has to do that. And, it's wild that we feel like we can put these kind of citizenship rules in place and then not provide the identification free of charge to the people who are citizens. Like, where do they get off with this shit? Every time you hear about a voter ID law, well, okay, that's fine, but you have to provide the ID. You have to provide the ID. You can't just say, you have to go get this specific ID and then make people jump through hoops to get it. It costs money. It takes time out of your day. And sometimes it takes too long. And that is a poll tax. That is charging someone an amount of money to vote. And that's not legal. It's not allowed. Voting is free. There is no poll tax allowed in the United States of America. So if you force somebody to get a specific ID to vote, you have to provide that ID. And that's the problem with voter ID laws. They don't want to do that. They don't want to provide the ID. They just want to create a hoop for people to jump through because they think there's this weird theory that the fewer people vote, the more power that they'll have at the top. Okay, fine, whatever. But Donald Trump signed this executive order in place of the SAVE Act. And what he wants to do is force every state to give over a list of voters, of citizen voters in their state to the Department of Justice, who will then determine whether or not that list is actually legal citizen voters. And then each state has to provide the United States Postal Service with the list of people that they are sending mail-in ballots to. And the US Postal Service will then compare the two lists to make sure that the ballots that the state wants to send don't go to an unapproved voter. Now, they haven't really got into what makes an approved voter. They seem to claim that it's citizenship, but how are you determining that? And this is the same people who have an executive order withdrawing birthright citizenship. So just being born here isn't enough to be a citizen for these people anymore. And you want to put them in charge of who gets to vote? So this law, it's not a law. I keep saying it's an executive order. Okay. This law is patently on its face unconstitutional. It's easy to see. It's completely straightforward. The federal government, and when it comes to the federal government, the only role it has in the administration of elections is to establish laws, not rules by the president, not one guy signing his name to something and saying the king declares this. No. You have to write a law that says this kind of ballot has to be accepted, for example. And then that's where the Voting Rights Act came in 1965. That's a voting rights law. That's a law that said we're going to do this and you're going to do this. And that the federal government set that down as a law. And that the federal government, that's what the federal government is supposed to do. So basically a state can't just say, well, you know what? We're just not going to allow left-handed people to vote. Okay, only right-handed people can vote. And that's our state law, and that's what we're going with. Well, no, you can't do that. The federal law states that basically the Constitution states that everybody over the age of 18, and we've amended it to give the franchise, the power of the democracy to both women who for some reason weren't included the first time around, and to people of color. So basically, if you're a human, and you're over 18 years old, you have the right to vote in this country. Now, there are states that disenfranchise you for the commission of a felony, and you don't get to vote again until you've paid your full sentence and restitution. And there's some places where they strip your right permanently, which is bonkers and needs to be fixed. If you pay your debt to society, you've paid your debt to society. You get to be a citizen again, a normal, everyday citizen. You got to pay taxes, so you might as well be able to vote as well. No taxation without representation. But this rule, this US Postal Service rule, was fought on two different fronts. Number one, Democratic states led by California and the District of Columbia filed suit saying, well, this rule is ridiculous because they haven't established any of the actual setup to how this is going to work. They haven't given us any of the parameters. We have a midterm election coming up. We're not going to be able to implement all of the things that they want in a timely manner. It's going to be an additional and excessive cost and burden to the state itself to meet the United States Postal Service's brand new requirements on what envelopes have to look like and how to scan them. And again, a post office that isn't even set up for this already anyway. So the states, some Democratic states fought it, and they got an injunction saying that the rule can't go into effect. Also fighting this rule is the League of Women Voters and the ACLU and a couple of other, I think it's the NAACP. I think there were several different voters' rights groups and civil rights groups that fought it, saying that it would disenfranchise people unnecessarily and institute a poll tax. Okay, there you go. So we've got this going because, again, we don't have the system set up. So both of those cases filed in Massachusetts, heard by the same judge, got injunctions stopping the rule. Now, on Friday of last week, they finally published, the USPS finally published the rule. This is what the post office is going to do. If states want to mail their ballots, they have to give us their lists, both us and the Department of Justice. If they do not, we will not deliver mail-in ballots. That was the rule that they published. Like, that's what they're going to do going forward because Donald Trump says so. Mad King stuff. Well, that was the thing that had been enjoined against. That's the thing that the state, this federal judge had said, no, you can't do that. The Supreme Court stepped in. And on Monday, 3 days after the publication of the rule, they said, we are going to lift that injunction and allow the rule to go forward because the states have not been harmed by this hypothetical order. Now, they ignored the fact that the rule had actually been published, so it was no longer hypothetical. They also pointed out that they weren't ruling on the constitutionality of this law, of this rule. They're only ruling that the states hadn't been harmed, which, for the record, total bullshit, because we're up to our asses in legal fees, in filings. We have to determine just printing these envelopes. I don't remember which state it was. Somebody was talking about this earlier. I was reading about it, or I was listening to it, reading about it. I listened to this one. One of the states, it was probably California, has already spent $3 million in getting the envelopes printed for all of their mail-in ballots. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money to just throw away because the Postal Service has decided that they're just not going to deliver mail-in ballots unless you succumb to this ridiculous cross-check system that the states already do. They already do it. There are already systems in place that keep non-citizens from voting and punish those who vote, those illegal votes. Illegal citizens? Illegal? No, it's not illegal. Undocumented? No, it's not undocumented. Illegal. If you're not a citizen, you don't get to vote. And there are systems in place that keep, non-citizens from voting and punish non-citizens for attempting to vote. There it is. I got there. This is not as easy as it sounds. And I make it sound hard. This rule has been enjoined twice in both cases, both the California versus Trump and the League of Women Voters versus Trump. And what the Supreme Court did was overturn the stay, meaning that the rule gets to go ahead in only the California case. The League of Women Voters case is still stayed. So they still can't actually do the thing in the rule. They can't refuse to deliver these ballots or accept these ballots from the states. States send them to the USPS, and technically the Postal Service is supposed to be an impartial arbiter, a nonpartisan arbiter who takes those pieces of mail and delivers them as paid for by the states. That's the way it's supposed to work. The Postal Service has no part in administration of elections. The president's office, the executive branch of the federal government, has no role in the administration of elections. In the aftermath of elections, they may or may not have a role dependent on the legal challenges that follow. All right? That's the way it works. That's the way it works. And if they do have a role, they still have to go through the judiciary anyway. This Supreme Court decision is blatant partisanship. It is, we are continuing to allow this particular president to do whatever he wants. And they make up ridiculous reasons to allow things to go forward while they consider the merits of the case. And in some cases, like the tariffs, they have come back with, after allowing the tariffs to stay in place for a very, very long time and costing all of us a lot of money, they've come down with, you don't have the authority to unilaterally impose these tariffs this way. So you have to refund all that money. Ultimately, they ruled against him on this one. Right? The tariffs thing, they ruled against him. They bend over backwards to allow him to do the impermissible thing for an extended period of time before then, in the end, if the thing is wildly impermissible, they stop him. Now, sometimes they don't. Sometimes either they just bend over backwards to allow it to continue in perpetuity. Like when he gets to fire members of committees and boards, like the Federal Communications Committee and the FEC. Presidents aren't allowed to fire these people and replace them with partisan hacks because you need people who are dedicated to the role and who exist above political pressure in order to do things like regulate our airways, in order to do things like regulate political financing irregularities, to investigate those things. You can't just fire the watchdogs and bring in your own watchdogs and go, these watchdogs are going to take care of everything for us. That's not the way this works. But the Supreme Court has decided that's the way it does work for this president, which is disgusting. The current makeup of the Supreme Court, in case you're unfamiliar, is six conservative justices appointed by Republican presidents. Four of which, is it 4 or 5? It's 5 of which were nominated by presidents who had not even won the popular vote. Chief Justice Roberts and Alito by George W. Bush, and all 3 justices appointed by Donald Trump. Comey Barrett, Kavanaugh, and Gorsuch. So nominated by presidents who didn't even have the mandate of the majority of America, hell, the plurality of America. And that's where we are. These people are determining the future of democracy. There are 3 quote-unquote liberal judges appointed by Democratic presidents, Kagan and Sotomayor, who were appointed by Barack Obama, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, who may go down as the greatest Supreme Court justice in the last 100 years. She's amazing, an amazing jurist. Ketanji Brown Jackson was appointed by Joe Biden. It is painfully obvious that this 9-person court is corrupt. And not all 9 of them, but 6 of them. Because they just invent out of whole cloth reasoning for their decisions. And it's been pretty vile to see. Whoever runs for president on the Democratic ticket in 2028 will have Supreme Court reform on the list of to-dos, the policy list. And they will have to. You're not going to win the Democratic primary without talking about court reform. Because in order to undo all of this damage, we're also going to have to fix the way the Supreme Court works. Term limits, the size, the number of people on the bench. There is no set number. It's been as high as, I believe it's 15, and as low as 7. 6 or 7? Oh, low. 9 is just too few in a wildly polarized partisan system. 13 to me is the minimum, but I agree with Elie Mystal of The Nation, freelance writer for The Nation and law expert. He's the best. Elie Mystal's the best. He thinks that there should be 31. I've heard 29 and 31 from him. 31 Supreme Court justices. And you know what? I'm down. Let's do this. Let's get real. Let's get funky. Let's expand the bench. As for how we should feel about this, the injunction is still in place. So we're going to get another one of these rulings on the full injunction. They may allow it. They may allow the rule. even though it's blatantly unconstitutional. And they may do it, and this is going to be wild, under what's called the Purcell principle, which is do not disturb the status quo of an election during election season. Basically, if it's too close to an election, don't change the rules, which is wild because this rule is just now on August 26th, official as of today. And the first mail-in ballots are going to go out on September 4th in North Carolina, which is like 10 days from now. I mean, we are 71 days away from the midterms. People are sharpening their pencils, getting ready to vote. Don't vote in pencil, vote in pen. What does it mean to us? If you planned on voting by mail, have a backup plan. You're going to have a little bit of time to figure it out. But I would make sure that you've double-checked your voter registration. I don't know what will happen. My guess is that the Supreme Court will continue to enable the destruction of our democracy. That's my bet. Even though it is wildly, blatantly unconstitutional to allow this order to go into effect. They have done worse, as they say. So be prepared. Be prepared. Be prepared to not just vote yourself in person, hopefully vote early. If your state allows early voting, if you can't vote by mail, vote early is the second best option. My state allows early voting. If I cannot vote by mail, I will vote early. And I will cast that ballot blue all the way up and down. I'm voting Democrat, 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 and more Democrats because we desperately need a check on this lawless, corrupt, abusive regime. So, that said, I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about something a little bit, I don't know, it's sad, but it's also uplifting to me. Yesterday, the 25th, Dolly Parton passed away. Dolly Parton was 80 years old. My entire life, I have proudly said that the number one celebrity that I share a birthday with is Dolly Parton. I grew up in the South, in Oklahoma, in the late 70s into the 80s, Dolly Parton's heyday. I was forced to watch Hee Haw. I was forced to listen to Roy Clark and the Mandrell Sisters and George Jones and Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. And I always loved Dolly. Not just because she looked like an angel, sounded like an angel, but she was always so nice. I remember she appeared on the Muppet Show, and everything she did just blew me away. I loved her movie debut, 9 to 5. She did several other films, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which was great. It's a musical adaptation, of course. Steel Magnolia is an incredible dramatic turn for her. She was so funny and so talented that she just lit up a room. She's an amazing woman. And all of those things only scratched the surface of who she was as a person. Born in the Eastern Tennessee mining country, she was the daughter of farmers, poor farmers, one of many siblings, and music was their entertainment. Dolly, devout Christian, talked about that at length. But more than that, she did it right. She walked the walk. she caught a lot of flack starting in the 80s for her support for the LGBTQ community and support for finding a cure for AIDS. She helped pay for the Moderna vaccine. She put $1 million into the Moderna vaccine during COVID. She was a philanthropist of incredible stature. She supported marching band programs in poor areas across the South, or the American South, where she supplied musical instruments and uniforms. And 31 years ago, I think it was, in 95, she started the Imagination Library, which was this nonprofit organization that you can sign up for when you have a child. And what it does is it sends you a book every month until that child turns 5 in order to engender a love of reading. The state of California has adopted this principle with its First 5 program. But Dolly Parton delivered over 300 million books in 31 years to children. She invested in our future. She was an amazing lady. And I think it's cooler to celebrate people who have done good things in their life, even if they haven't been big things, even little things. She did great big things, great big, amazing, good things. And her life should be celebrated. She's an icon. And we probably didn't deserve her, to be honest. And it reminded me of singing with my mom Dolly songs like Islands in the Stream and 9 to 5 and Here You Come Again. And my mom liked Dolly Parton. It's a true story. I just want to celebrate her for a few moments. All these stories have been coming in on social media and otherwise on the regular news about what a great lady she was and how she positively influenced so many people with her unconditional love and support. And just like my mom, who supported her kids to the best that she did everything she could for us. I mean, it wasn't this incredible powerhouse that Dolly Parton was, but when my mom passed away, I was supposed to give a eulogy, one of the eulogies, the final eulogy. And after listening to everybody else have their moment, I did what I thought my mom would appreciate the most. I told a joke. A real live joke in the moment about how, as we were coming to the graveside service that morning, it was a January morning, late January in Oklahoma, cold with the wind blowing hard. And as I lowered myself into the back seat of the car with my aunt and uncle, I tore my pants. And it was the only pair of slacks that I brought. So there was no changing clothes. We were already running later than we wanted to. Anyway, I said, let's just go. All I could do was laugh. So as I stood there at the graveside service, I told the story about how I just tore the ass out of my only pair of slacks. And now I've been forced to stand here for 45 minutes with the cold Oklahoma wind whipping up my backside and freezing my nether regions to celebrate my mom, who would have laughed until she cried. Be more like Dolly. That's how we do this. Together. Lifting each other up. That's how we win. That's how we create the world we want for our kids, for ourselves, for our future. That's how we do it. We lift each other up. We support each other. We love each other. Those are the things that really matter. The world lost an angel, but heaven gained one. I hope my mom gets to sing duets with her in the afterlife. That's going to do it for me for today. I'm going to be back on Friday. And I'm going to talk more about the headlines from the week. It'll be a shorter show. But take a minute today to listen to a Dolly Parton song. Truly a trailblazer and a wonderful, wonderfully talented human being. She was the best. Represented the best of us. Share this podcast with a friend. That's how we grow. That's how we get around. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And be back with me next time. And until then, be good humans. Please. It's the least we can do for each other. The little kindnesses make all the difference. Love to you. Love to Dolly. Delete, 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 blah, blah, blah. Audio checks are the best, aren't they?